We are back in 1984, continuing our look at the Transformers toy line by Hasbro. Previously, we took a look at the Autobot Power Dasher Zetar, one of the mail-away reinforcements from Cybertron. This time, we're staying with the Autobots as we take a look at the hot-headed and impetuous mini-bot, Cliffjumper, here on KREED'S Collection. Hey, welcome back to another episode of KREED'S Collection. Today we're taking a look at Cliffjumper from the 1984 Transformers toy line by Hasbro. Cliffjumper's motto is strike first, strike fast, strike hard, which would make the Cobra Kai proud. And this motto sums him up pretty well, as his eagerness and daring have no equal. Although he's one of the fastest Autobots, he considers Earth terrain a hindrance, and he generally uses his speed to draw fire away from others. Unfortunately, his recklessness often leads to situations too dangerous for him. And now that we know a bit more about Cliffjumper, let's take a closer look. Cliffjumper's vehicle mode is a super deformed Porsche 924 Carrera GT. He's got the awesome rubber tires here, as you can see, but his windows are blacked out. You can't see inside the cabin of the car. Here on the back you can see the awesome looking spoiler, and if you can't tell, this car was inspired by the penny racers back in the day. The sticker here on the back panel has held up really well, and you can see gauges on it as if it's some type of alien engine, which is a pretty cool touch. Here on the other side it is identical, of course, but on the hood here you can see a little vent, and then of course on the roof you see his Autobot symbol, which is a little beat up but is actually held up pretty well. Here on the bottom of the vehicle, you can see that it is all solid. There is a screw there that holds it together, but other than that, you can't see all the pieces of the robot. That's one cool thing about Cliffjumper, is the fact that when he's transformed into a vehicle, you don't see any of his pieces hanging out. Hey, don't be dirty, I know what you're thinking. Anyway, now we're going to do the roll test. As you can see, he rolls pretty good. Not very far, but the rubber tires give him a lot of traction, and he does actually roll really well if you just push him around. And one more crazy cool detail is he actually has Dunlop tires. Yeah, that's right. He has licensed tires. Pretty good. Alright, now we're going to transform Cliffjumper into his robot mode. So you're going to start by grabbing the bottom here and pulling out on the wheels, and that will form his arms on each side. Now once you do that, you want to turn him back over, and you want to grab the hood and pull it all the way down. And then go ahead and grab it again and pull all the way down. And make sure you have it pulled all the way down, because when you flip up his feet, they will break if you don't have them pulled all the way down. Now the last step is to open up the hatch here for his face, and there you go. Cliffjumper in robot mode. So Cliffjumper has an excellent robot mode in my opinion, even though it's a simple transformation. And he's one of the more memorable Transformers in the cartoon because he's been voiced by really famous people. Like, for example, originally he was voiced by Casey Kasem, who is also the original voice of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo and a very well-known radio DJ. He was also voiced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Transformers Prime, and back in my Windcharger episode, I mistakenly said that The Rock voiced Windcharger. Whoops. So you're telling me the Windcharger was never voiced by The Rock? No, unfortunately, it looks like that was never true. Well, what voice are you going to use? Well, I kind of like the announcer voice, so I'm going to go with Casey Kasem. Well, can I still use the Rock voice? That's fine with me. Oh, finally, the Windcharger is back on KREED'S Collection. That was pretty good. Oh, thank you. Geez, I'm really glad we worked that out for you, Windcharger. Anyway, can we get back to the review now? So, Cliffjumper has a super nice sculpt, especially his face. I love his face sculpt. Look how good that is. It's not just the face though, the horns, just everything about it. I really like it. Here's a much better shot of his Autobot symbol too, which is pretty good, like I said. A few scratches, but not too bad. And if you look at the end of his hands, he actually has little fists molded in there. They're a bit hard to see, but he's got little knuckles and a thumb rolled up underneath, and he will punch you. His legs have a lot of detail molded in as well. It's difficult to see, but if I get the light sheen on it correctly, you can see it. Lastly, his feet are the front fenders of the car, and you can actually move them, but we'll check that in the articulation section. Here on the back side of the figure, you can see that it's just the underside of the car, nothing really going on. Now we're going to check out Cliffjumper's articulation. As we already established, his feet can actually go down. That's part of the transformation, of course, but it is a point of articulation, and it can make him look like he's walking in a way. His arms can go up and all the way around full 360 if you want. It's a bit loose, but it still works. His head can look down and up thanks to his transformation, and that's it. That covers all 5 points of articulation for Cliffjumper. The copyright information for Cliffjumper is located on the bottom of his foot, 1980-1984, Takara, Japan. Here's a quick look at Cliffjumper's tech spec. If you'd like to read it, pause now. And now for our He-Man size comparison. Cliffjumper is quite a bit smaller than He-Man, and that makes sense because he's a mini-bot. And He-Man's used to having transforming allies. After all, he does know Stondar and the Rock People. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my toy retrospective for the Autobot Warrior Cliffjumper from the 1984 Transformers toy line by Hasbro. I've done a lot of really large toys lately, so it was kind of nice to go back to a smaller toy for this week's retrospective. Made my life a lot easier. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a thumbs up, and if you have any thoughts, please leave a comment. I love reading and responding to them. And while you're at it, please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it, and it would help my channel grow. I do a retrospective on a toy from my vintage collection every Wednesday, so hope to see you next week and every week after, here on KREED'S Collection.